So if you support Hollis, just get out. I am a cyclist, absolutely love my bike. It's one of the most empowering, freeing things I've ever purchased. I am a cat person. I have a lovely little cat called JD. And then even more troublesome, I have a husband. I'm going to talk to you today about whether you're underestimating your supporters. And this came about actually a rant that I had on LinkedIn that Dawn picked up on. But it was basically about how I think we need to be treating our donors as more than just donors. We need to be looking at them as activists. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about. Because I feel like that over the last few years, there's kind of been this general consensus towards charities taking inspiration from businesses and looking at our donors as consumers. And there being this whole attitude towards actually we should be offering value exchange and freebies to our donors. So encouraging them to support, we should be giving them free products or exclusive information or discount vouchers or access to special clubs. And I really dislike that. I think that that creates really transactional relationships with our donors. And I don't think we should have transactional relationships with our donors. I think when somebody gives to us, they're not giving to us because they want to buy something. They're giving to us because actually they want to invest something in the cause that they care about, and they're not just buying things from us. So I think that really ignores the emotional response that you get from giving. And actually, I think it means that we've forgotten what motivates donors to give, and actually we're underestimating their desire to be the change that they want to see in the world. So that's why I'd like us to not treat our donors as consumers anymore and treat them as activists, because when you think of consumer products, these might be some other brands that you think of. You're probably not thinking of brands like this. And so for me, that's what's really, really important. So obviously there's been a really big issue with donor attrition over the last few years, especially in individual giving. And so actually what I wanted to kind of talk about was Unilever, because actually businesses are trying to learn something from us, and Unilever sustainable living brands are a really, really good example of this. They're realising that to attract and keep customers, they have to do something more than just offer a product. They actually have to stand for something. And by just creating these products, Unilever have actually created activists, and they've tapped into what people care about. And so if you look at the statistics of the Unilever sustainable living brands, they've delivered 70% of the company's turnover in 2017 came from these 26 brands. Now Unilever have got hundreds of brands, and 26 of them are bringing in 70% of their turnover, and those brands grew 46% faster than the rest of the business put together. Like these are brands that people really care about. They're really, really buying into. And actually they've really had an impact. So 601 million people have been reached through their programs on hand washing, sanitation, oral health and safe drinking water. 56% of their agricultural raw materials now come from sustainable sources. And I'm sure you all know about the Dove Self-Esteem campaign, and that's reached 29 million people. Like, so people really, really care about sustainable products, and Unilever understand that. And I think for anybody in here that's working in corporate partnerships, when you're putting together your prospect list and your pipelines, this is something to really think about, because actually we know that if we say to companies, look, we know what your problems are, we know that you want to stand for something, we know that that's really, really important to you. Yes, it means they're doing something good in the world, and yes, it means they're being activists and they're encouraging their customers to be activists. Also, it's going to have an impact on their bottom line, and the Unilever is a really good example of that. But I'm actually going to put charities and businesses aside for a second. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we can learn from the world of sport, and particularly football. So football clubs these days are run as businesses. Whether you like that or not, that is absolutely the case. And while fans might be really frustrated that it's really, really expensive to go and see their favourite team play while players are turning up in Aston Martins, the truth of the matter is that fans are still really, really engaged with football. They still buy shirts, they still turn up to games, and they still pay for things like Sky Sports and BT Sports subscriptions. And I think this is really interesting, because being a football fan isn't about being transactional. It isn't about what you receive out of it beyond the emotion. And if it was, believe me, I wouldn't be an Arsenal supporter. But, you know, if you think about football fans and that emotion that it brings and that investment you get, it doesn't matter that you might not support the best team, or it might not matter that your team is run as a business. Actually, what the football industry has understood is that those supporters are going to support them no matter what. And you just have to look at like the England fans during the World Cup last year and how mental everybody went during the World Cup to understand the emotion and the emotional attachment and investment that football fans have. And actually football fans also have quite a lot of power, and again, this is something really to think about with your donors, is how much power that they have. So there's a massive football culture, especially online, and players and clubs are really starting to tap into this, and they're actually having to really realise that they have to kind of cater towards their players. So a really good example of this is Fortuna Düsseldorf, who are in the German league, and they have been supporting their fans in a campaign that they've started for fan-friendly kickoff times. And this is a fan-led movement, but the players have become invested in this. So the players are wearing shirts before kickoff that celebrate this campaign. And I think, like football, our charities would be nothing without our supporters. And that kind of brings me on to this. I'm sorry it's a bit fuzzy, but this is the Google brand arc. If you search that, you will find it. This is basically marketing in its simplest form. And what you want to be doing as fundraisers is plotting where your donors are along this journey. Because brands have to build emotional connections, and that doesn't matter what size of an organisation or what size of a brand is, you still have to build emotional connections so that people keep coming back. And to create activists, our supporters kind of need to be at this stage. They need to be at that your organisation is known for something that they care about. But where the magic really happens is when you get to this point, which is your organisation is what represents me. And I think going back to the football example, if you were to ask somebody, even if you didn't know that they were interested in football, and you just met them and you said, tell me about yourself, a really proper football fan, like I did, will tell you that they're a football fan and who they support. And I think we want to get to the point as charities where our donors are saying that, where our donors say, hi, I'm Lizzi, and I support Copperfield. I'm a really big fan of Save the Children. And I think we need to be getting to that point with our donors. And like I say, football's really excelled at this because people define themselves, and we want to get to this point with our supporters as well. So I'm not having a go. I'm not having a go at companies. Like, they do good stuff sometimes. I'm a corporate fundraiser. Please don't anyone say that. Put that on Twitter. But we can actually learn from consumer companies and their critics as well about how we can create activists and our donors. So one thing is that we're learning is that social media really, really is powerful. So a couple of recent examples, the Revoke Article 50 campaign, nearly 6 million people signed that, which is a third of the people that voted to remain in the EU. And that picked up, that traction came from social media. So social media isn't just this place anymore that's for social justice warriors. Actually, it is a genuine tool for activism. Another really good example is if you guys remember the Iceland Christmas advert. So that was banned from TV because it was too political. So what did they do? They put it on YouTube. And they had a huge response to that. And it created widespread debate about the use of palm oils in food and that destroying the rainforest. But for Iceland, it increased their mince pie sales, which is what the advert was about, by 11%. It also put them in the top of the YouGov brand index for consideration. So for consideration for that period, they went above Waitrose. So this is, there is power to be had on social media, and companies are kind of tapping into that. Especially what we need to now think of as charities is how can we also tap into that power and create widespread conversation, create debate, and create activism around our causes. And the other thing is customer service. You know, I could ask you to name brands that you think are great customer service. Probably a lot of you will say someone like John Lewis. But I actually want to talk about the US electronics company, Best Buy, because they have been adapting to social media like crazy. They've become what has been described as customer obsessed. And they've actually put a lot of feedback that they've got from socials into action. So they've done things like cutting expenses, price matching, improving their website. And as a result of all of that, from a result of listening to their customers, they're showing new signs of growth. And actually what this is telling us is that customers, or in our case, donors, are actually starting to have more power than shareholders or the board. And I think that's something really, really, really important to remember, is that our donors have power, and actually we need to be using that power in the right way, because they've got access to a lot of public platforms now. So they can say what they want about us, so we want to make sure that they're saying the right thing. So I think one thing that can be really difficult about creating activism within our charities is that if you use the word activist, it sounds really insurmountable. It sounds like you need to be outside Parliament every day, or on Waterloo Bridge with Extinction Rebellion. Massive kudos to anybody who went out and went to that. But for some of us, if we're at work all day, it makes doing some of that stuff a bit more difficult. But that doesn't mean to say that you can't be an activist. And so maybe we need to break down the barriers of kind of what activism is and make it sound a little bit less scary. So, I mean, one of those things is social media. So, I mean, I can show of hands quickly, who posts on social media about issues and causes that they care about? Okay, keep your hands up. Of those people, how many of you would consider yourselves activists? Yeah, that's kind of what there's not many, but that is being an activist, because you're sharing something that you really care about. Things like the Black Lives Matter movement started on social media. Travis Kalanick, who was the CEO of Uber, he lost his job, because he's a terrible person, because of the social media campaign. So actually, sharing content spreads awareness, and it's a really, really easy way for us to be active. So let's make sure that we're sharing content on social media, and that we're encouraging our supporters to also be sharing that content on social media. Donations themselves are activism, because you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're putting your money into something you care about. That is activism. Educating your supporters. Like this can be so simple. Like if we're providing our supporters with books or podcasts and where they can find them, they can learn more about your cause, and they become more empowered and confident in talking about it, which means they're going to advocate for your cause a lot more. Volunteering. If someone, if you're volunteering, of course you're an activist. You're literally giving up your time for a cause that you care about. And then the creating community can be really important. And again, this is something that we can do within our organisations, or something that we can encourage our supporters to do organically. But actually being an activist can be a really, really lonely place. I'm sure everyone in this room has suffered at the hands of Twitter trolls. And so that can make you knock your confidence in being an activist. And so actually, if you know that there's a community, whether it's a physical community or a digital community, that can support you, then you're more likely to carry on with that activism. Charity shops. Charity shops are a really interesting one. If you have got charity shops for your organisation, please encourage your donors to use them. First of all, raises money for your charity. Second of all, you get a really lovely bargain. And third of all, fast fashion is the second biggest cause of climate change. So actually, if you tell your donors, if you shop in your charity shops, they're actually doing twice as good. Because in the first instance, they're supporting your charity. In the second instance, they're doing something good for the planet. Giving Tuesday, there is so much noise on Giving Tuesday. You can cut through some of that. Instead of asking people to give money, get them to take an action, because then again, you're encouraging them to be an activist. Boycotts are massive. So I've got a couple of stats here. One is around the Uber campaign that I mentioned. When that campaign hit, 200,000 users deleted their Uber accounts. And that was a result of that campaign, and that's what led to Travis Kalanick losing his job. 35,000 people boycotted Eurovision on Saturday to show solidarity against Palestinian apartheid. Now, that's not a difficult thing to do. You know, you don't have to watch Eurovision. You can just go and watch something else on your Saturday night or go for a drink. So, you know, boycotts don't have to be these humongous things that are really unsustainable. They can be dead easy. Lifestyle changes, again, this is really similar to charity shops in terms of like the much wider impact it can have. Showing your donors that a small change can encourage widespread impact towards your cause is great, but it also means that it might have a wider positive impact as well. So, for example, you know, if you're an environmental charity and you ask your supporters to make a lifestyle change by carrying their own water bottle with them, then actually that's a huge impact on the wider world. But you're the one that encouraged them to do that, so they've got an affinity to you as a result. And finally, protests. You know, I think that's the most obvious one. But they can make your supporters feel empowered because they're involved in a group activity. Also, it's a face-to-face platform for you to talk to your supporters. And I just wanted to give you some really great examples of supporter activism. So the Stonewall Rainbow Laces campaign, they have an amazing partnership with lots of sporting teams, but they have one with Arsenal. And even if you're not a football fan, I highly implore you to go and watch the video that Arsenal put out to celebrate rainbow laces. They're basically Arsenal players saying things they couldn't change about themselves. And there's a gorgeous ex-Arsenal player called Olivier Giroud who was topless, spraying himself with deodorant, going, "I cannot change that I am gorgeous." But it was fantastic, and it was a great bit of activism from Arsenal, which again, for any of you corporate fundraisers in the room, you know, this isn't just for individuals, this can be really impactful with groups and with your corporate partners as well. Direct action group, Sisters Uncut, invaded the BAFTA's red carpet. This was in, I think, 2018 or 2017, and that was in response to Theresa May's domestic violence bill. If anyone doesn't know who Sisters Uncut are, they are a campaign group that campaign against cuts to services and budgets that directly impact women. Friends of the Earth have their No Deal, No Thanks campaign, which is basically encouraging their supporters to write to their local MPs and their local representatives against a no-deal Brexit because of the negative effects that a no-deal Brexit could have on climate change. So they've really bought that, something that a lot of people in this country are very, very passionate about, and brought it back to their cause. And then finally, CARE do a part of the March for Women. Again, this is the International Women's Day March. Thousands and thousands of people go to this, but they've kind of commandeered it as their thing, and they're very encouraging for their supporters to come along to that. And it's really good for our organisations. 57% of people believe that charities play an essential or important role in society. So our supporters already think we're doing something great. Like, let's bring them in on that. Let's have them as part of that great stuff that we're doing for society. This is amazing. 63% of people take additional positive action as a result of donating. Like, we really need to be jumping on the back of that. When someone gives a donation, it's because in that moment, they really, really care about your cause. So we need to jump on the back of that as quickly as we can. So, even if that's when you send out the thank you for their donation, you make an ask towards them signing a campaign or them sharing something on Twitter, or, there's this great article, great book you could read, go and check it out and find out more about what you've just supported. 16 to 24-year-olds are the most likely to have signed a petition in the last year. So this is a group that really, really want to be active. They really want to be out there supporting the causes that are close to their heart. These are our future donors. Like, these are the futures of our charities. If we can engage them in petitions, we can engage them in other ways as well. And finally, men are more likely than women to take part in protesting. This is a similar sort of rationale to the previous point. For a lot of us, getting men to support charities is quite difficult. Getting young men to support charities is quite difficult. And here you've got a way of men taking social action that happens more than women. So that is a great way to engage them in our charities and then move them on to becoming donors. And I just want to kind of give you some practical tips to do this. So I know that you might absolutely agree with everything that I'm saying right now, but you might be thinking, oh shit, but I don't know how I can go and take this to my manager tomorrow, or to the senior leadership team, or to the board. And actually, you want, there's some practical ways you can get around that. Just mention it in a team meeting, have a conversation around activism in your team meeting. What it is, why it's important, share some of those statistics. Make sure you're sharing campaigns with your key contacts. Again, this is my kind of experiences in corporate partnerships. If you've got campaigns, make sure that you're sharing them with all your partners. Make sure that they're putting them on their intranet or sharing it with their staff, kind of whatever works for them. But make sure that you're kind of getting it out to as many people as possible. Share relevant news to your cause, even if your charity didn't write it. If there is something that is supportive of the work that you do, share it with them. They'll be so excited that you have kind of recognised that they're interested in your work, and you're not just, it doesn't look like you're just plugging your charity. Actually, what you're showing is that you really care about the cause and you want them to care about it as well. Take part in some activism yourself. Like, there's like 10 really easy things back there that you can do, so do those. And actually, by taking part in that activism and understanding how simple it can be, actually then you've got a really good personal case as to why your organisation should be kind of embracing it as well. Present the business case, so show why it's going to be good for your charity to do it, especially if you're kind of having to go to more senior team members. They're always going to say, yeah, well, that's nice, but really, why is it good for our organisation? Well, you can tell them what. You can tell them that you can engage men, and you can tell them you can engage 16 to 24-year-olds. And again, this is a corporate partnerships one, but I think it's, you can kind of adapt it, but build it into partnership activity. If you've got a new corporate partner, if they're saying, all right, okay, so we're going to do a bake sale, and we're going to do a dress down there, and we're going to do this cycle to France. Okay, that's great activity, but be like, okay, but are you going to come on this march with us? Are you going to sign this campaign? And actually, just make it part and parcel